Hello again, and welcome to the VO2 Lounge podcast, what aims to be your one-stop shop for all things health and fitness. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about supplementation and supplements in general. As always, if you're new, why not follow, rate, and share the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. It helps people find it. I must say that anything said in this podcast does not substitute the advice of a medical professional. Listeners are always advised to seek professional medical advice before acting upon anything learned during this episode. Now, without further ado, let's get on to the topic of supplementation. Alright, so let's start by saying some of these supplements, if not to some extent, all of them have a similar claim outcome as exercise. Like they have a similar sort of, blurred line of, if you listen to some of these supplements individually, you go, oh my God, these are amazing. But what should be addressed is the fact that exercise does have the same outcome as a lot of these. And that outcome is often proven and far greater. So the major elephant in the room that people tend to ignore is that a 5 times reduction with elite VO2 max so that is an easy way of putting it, is the top 2.5% of people, like the top 2.5% of people's VO2 max per age group have a 5 times reduction in their all-cause mortality. And a 3 times reduction just comes from moving from sedentary to an average level of cardiovascular fitness. And I can guarantee before going any further that none of these supplements will give you that result. So take all of these with a pinch of salt, but know that, that's always there. So with that out of the way, vitamin B12 is going to be the first one. I thought, this is the spiciest, sexiest one because it's everywhere at the moment. Everywhere. Everyone's always talking about B12. It's on things like Frosties, it's on Cocoa Pops, it's on, almond milks, nut milks, oat milks, all of the substitutes. And it's got to the point where, it's even on your cereals, and anything that can possibly have it has it. And that's mainly due to the increase in meat-free diets becoming more popular, due to kind of the environmental pressures, social pressures, all these kind of things. It's just become more popular, and therefore vitamin B12 has been brought to the forefront, because the idea is that if you have a meat-free diet, you'll be deficient, and at that point, you'll need this supplement. Now, there is currently low evidence to support improvements in things like cognitive function, depressive symptoms, and idiopathic fatigue, if I'm saying that correctly, which is just unexplained fatigue, in both normal and subclinical levels of serum B12. So that's people who are technically on a clinical level fine, and on a clinical level low in B12. Now, there could be still more, because although meat-free diets have been around for a while, they've been less in the limelight and less popular than ever before. So there is still more to come on the role it has to play in people who choose not to eat any animal products, because there is some evidence that says that it might take up to about 5 years for that vitamin B12 deficiency to show itself. So arguably at this current point, maybe taking B12 daily is, arguably a waste of money. I use this in quote, softly. But maybe just supplementing it once a day, maybe once a week, maybe twice a week, if you're someone who has a meat-free diet. But if you don't, looks like there's limited value in supplementing it. The next big one that I think is pretty common to be bought is probably one of those highlight. Well, I think there's some supplements that everyone has heard of you should be taking, and that one, vitamin D. Now, I don't know. I suppose I've gone through phases of taking it. I'm currently not taking it. But vitamin D is needed in the body for calcium absorption. And without it, conditions such as osteoporosis, which is weakening of bones, muscle aches and weakness in general can occur. So supplementing is reported to have, the opposite effect. There is an element of there is a point at which you reach toxicity, where the levels are too high and they interfere with the natural process of bone metabolism and, the regeneration. And so it's doing the opposite. So you kind of have to be a bit careful with that. So taking maybe 2,000 IU a day every day could lead you to get into that toxicity level, which would not be ideal. Now, a lot of the information on, vitamin D comes from observational studies in a lot of cases. But then there are some, clinical trials. But the current sort of consensus is that, vitamin D, people who had higher levels of vitamin D had an improved level of muscle function. Now, there is, a caveat to this. This could quite easily be reverse causality, as vitamin D is synthesized in the skin during sun exposure. People with more sun exposure tend to have a more active lifestyle, and therefore, as a result, just tend to have better muscle function. I mean, yes, you could argue, if you just go to the gym, you're not getting that sun exposure. But there's also, all those people who play sports, all those people who run, cycle, row outdoors, do all these activities. So it's fair to say that the likelihood is that someone with this improved muscle function and elevated levels of vitamin D is probably coming from the exercise. To sort of validate this, they've taken sedentary people and supplemented and raised their vitamin D levels in the blood serum, and found that it actually had an adverse effect on muscle function. So it's a bit unclear, but it's somewhat fair to say that it isn't as, big a deal as you may at first thought, but in fact just, having regular exposure. Because even in the winter, if you get out for an hour while the sun's out, that could be enough to, keep those serum levels adequately topped up until the summer, where you get even more sun exposure. Now, my kind of favourite one on the list, maybe not my favourite, because there's some others to come that, are pretty solid in their evidence and they get the benefits of them. But omega-3 has 3 key things. There is the weakest evidence is around depression in mild to moderate levels. Shows that it might help with this, but the evidence is strong, so I wouldn't use it I wouldn't jump to it straight away. There could be there, could not. The more solid bits of evidence are around the fact that it helps build the cellular makeup of your eyes and help prevent vision problems like muscular degradation that comes with age that affects the middle part of your vision. So in general, having this dose of omega-3 could help maintain your vision at whatever capacity you have it later into life. And then the big one is just the reduced risk of most coronary and cardiovascular outcomes like myocardial infarction, coronary heart disease, total coronary heart disease, and cardiovascular disease. But the one thing it doesn't seem to impact is chance of stroke. So just in general for your heart, it seems pretty positive. A lot of these studies surround the sort of 1,000 milligram mark to 1 gram, but there are some that push it quite far, 3,000, 4,000 milligrams, and they seem to show even stronger results. But most of the current studies are around the sort of 1 gram mark. So It looks like there could be more room for improvement, but it definitely seems to have positive outcomes on your heart and on your eyes. So this is one that I'd kind of give a thumbs up. I'd say so far vitamin B12 and vitamin D, maybe take once a week, maybe take 5 times over the course of 3 months. They're not as critical. Whereas omega-3, it looks like 1 gram a day could be highly beneficial. Next one is magnesium. Magnesium, I think it's got, again, 3 big parts to it. The effect it has on muscles and muscle function, which is big for athletes. The effects it has on sleep and affecting insomnia, and then the effects it has on blood pressure. So for athletes, the big one is it is really important for the skeletal muscle function. It mainly seems to be more beneficial in the elderly people, and it's sort of become apparent that in the physically active, if your serum levels are adequate, then you won't really see any benefits in going even higher. But if you find out you are deficient, then it seems to have positive outcomes, although these outcomes are not gigantic. On insomnia, I had heard it quite a few times about how taking it before bed, but it looks like that a dose of less than 1 gram 3 times a day could be given to people with insomnia and affect the sleep onset time and help you get to sleep faster. There is some stuff about improving deep sleep, but the current sort of biggest gain seems to be on sleep duration and lowering sleep onset time by small amounts, but it's a change nonetheless. Your next one that I said is the effects on blood pressure. It remains a bit controversial, apparently, and it suggests that 300 milligrams a day for 3 months was shown to reduce blood pressure by approximately 2 milliliters of hemoglobin. So if you've got a blood pressure 160 over 90, no, it's not going to drop you below the hypertensive threshold, but it's something. And maybe it does, you are a bigger responder and you get 5, but it's not a huge change. But it does seem to exhibit some form of a change. Now, on to one that I sometimes don't even look at it as a supplement, but it is a supplement, and that's protein. My biggest concern has always been heavy metal content, but the consensus is that the dose effectively makes the poison, and there will be some heavy metal content in it, but 1 shake or 2 shakes a day seems unlikely to cause any adverse effects. Definitely 1 a day. So yes, if you are trying to consume 200 grams of protein and ingest protein powder, maybe there are other issues with that. But if you're just trying to hit a goal and you're 20-30 grams short, then 1 protein shake a day isn't the end of the world. So when considering a protein supplement, there are other stuff to consider. You've got nitrogen spiking, and so you effectively just have to be on the lookout for individual amino acids listed on the label, things like glutamine, creatine, glycine, taurine, valine, and isoleucine. These all can be listed and counted towards the total protein content. And in that case, you might see it's advertised at 30, but that's not the amount of whey protein you're getting in, for example. So you have to be on the lookout. The best thing to do is just go with a kind of reputable brand. Check what's on the label. It might be listed. It's not saying that all companies that list them are counting it to the total protein content. But if someone's been in the industry for quite a long time, if there's this new protein powder claiming wonderful things and has 40 grams of protein in it, per similar dosage of a normal one, say like a name brand that's doing 25, there's room to be skeptical, basically. But obviously protein contributes to muscle protein synthesis. It's really easy to consume before or after a workout, and it plays a vital role in recovering from weightlifting, running, cycling, all these kind of activities that are good for you. It just plays a really key role. So it's an important thing. If you can get your protein needs from your diet, then great. Something like, say you're trying to put on mass, or you run it 2 grams per pound is 1 gram per pound is the often metric used, or 2 grams per kilogram, or you even got one that I quite like using is just 1 gram per centimeter. So for example, for me, 189 centimeters, 189 grams per day gets you kind of a good number. You know, I wouldn't worry over the minute numbers, but if you're getting currently 60 and you go to the gym 6 times a week or run 6 times a week, then you could look to up that. One I threw in there just because I think it's well known that really creatine is kind of one of these big supplements that benefits athletic performance more in a niche way. It proven to have really limited to no effect on aerobic performance like running, cycling and swimming, but for lean muscle mass growth it is kind of an obvious choice. How it works is increases your stores of phosphocreatine in the body, allowing for greater ATP production and increasing the time to fatigue during weightlifting exercises. So clearly you can do more, like you can lift more volume, and therefore bigger stimulus on the muscle group, and so an improved performance, bigger stimulus, and therefore more adaptation. Will come with a slight effect of higher lean mass, mainly due to the water that is stored then around the muscle. But say you're a cyclist, you don't worry about it, or a runner who's really, you're someone who's in a sort of power to weight sport, then doing it in kind of your off season would be beneficial. But then if you're someone who just goes to the gym and isn't cared about power to weight, or you're a casual cyclist or athlete that doesn't have to, sweat over 500 grams a kilo, of lean mass, then taking it all year round is attractive. The dosage is agreed that there seems to be limited difference in the dosage past the loading period. You can either do 20 grams a day for about 5 days to load it on faster, or you can just do 5 grams a day to 20 to 30 days to load it, and then a 5 gram maintenance. Either way, just 5 grams a day and you will maintain adequate stores. Now the final one is iron supplementation. It's an essential mineral in delivering oxygen to the muscles, so it's clear that for all human beings it's pretty key metric, and it's could have the potential of being a pretty beneficial supplement, because if you're an elite athlete, the more oxygen you can get to the muscles, that's what you're effectively doing your training for. And for just your average Joe, as in the VO2 max episode, delivering more oxygen to the muscles helps you more than just to run faster. It allows you to walk quicker, it allows you to carry more shopping, it allows you to just do tasks. So ferritin, you might have seen it on a blood test before, is the cellular storage protein for iron, and so generally is reflective of iron stores, and that's why for most cases when you have your blood drawn, it's used as an indicator of how much iron. The athletic performance side, and I think general performance, and need to supplement, is shown below 20 micrograms per litre. So when it's over those values, you're not like getting to 40 isn't going to benefit you. But if you're below 20, it seems like it can benefit you. So, to summarize, we've had a few supplements there. We've had vitamin B12, which is kind of like, the importance is a bit vague, and daily supplementation is probably not needed. Vitamin D falls under that same category of you can probably get away with not supplementing it at all. Omega-3, 1 gram a day, seems to be extremely beneficial for eye health, some levels of cognitive function, but more importantly, cardiovascular health. Magnesium seems to be a option for reducing insomnia. Slight improvements in muscular performance if you are deficient, and some small impacts to blood pressure. Protein, just be careful where to some extent you're getting the protein from, but the heavy mental content isn't too much to be worried about, and nitrogen spiking isn't done by every company that labels these amino acids, so going with a reputable brand is probably your first point of call. Creatine, just get it as cheap as you can. It shouldn't break the bank. Taking it 5 grams a day is adequate for maintenance. You can either load it over 5 days, taking 20 grams a day, or just from the beginning, if you're just doing it indefinitely, 5 grams, and it'll take about 20 to 30 days to load. And then finally, iron. No need to really supplement when it's already above 20 micrograms per litre. That's ferritin stores. And, if it is deficient, then you will improve your ability to deliver oxygen to working muscles, and therefore highly beneficial. Now, if you've made it this far into the episode, I would like to thank you. If you would like to rate, share, suggest any other topics to be covered, I'll do my best to get to them, and I'll see you in the next episode.